Hi, good morning. It's so good to be here. The sun is shining. Spring is really here. It's supposed to be like 70 degrees in Portland today. I'm so excited. Anyway, it's so good to see you. So, today we're going to talk about how to turn failure into the fuel for success. Or another way of saying it is moving from breakdown to breakthrough. If you're here with us live, say hi and please join the conversation. You know how much I hate talking into the ether and nothing. And it's so much more fun when we're talking together. So say hi. If you're watching the replay, let me know and put that in the comments too. And if you want the notes to this conversation, so the steps and all of the information that we're going to talk about how to go from being in the midst of a breakthrough out the other side into in the midst of a breakdown out the other side into a breakthrough, make sure that you let me know below and I'll send you the note once they're done. Okay, which will be sometime next week. Okay, so what are we talking about here? Well, 95% of business breakdowns are front runners for a breakthrough. What do I mean by that? 95% of the time when you're feeling stuck, when it looks like everything is falling apart, when things are really hard in your business, they are the beginnings or the first step to having a breakthrough, for going to the next level, for having a revelation for that actually will open doors and open possibilities and open up a different future, right? So breakdowns 95% of the time lead to breakthroughs. But it is always hard to see things that way when you're in the middle of the tornado and you're trying to figure out a solution. When you're facing a breakdown, it's really easy to get caught up in all of the frustration and the whirl of emotions and the anger and really feeling like a failure. It can feel like you're on a hamster wheel with no way out. You don't know how to step off, especially when you find that you have run into the same exact obstacle or challenge before and before and before, and it's just like one time after another. How do you feel like you're never going to get away from whatever the thing is, right? The same issue. You kind of feel like you've hit a growth ceiling and there's just no way to break through. So when I first started this business, I had a ridiculously successful sales record. I had hit six figures in my first year, and for the next 3 years, I continuously hit six figures. And in the fourth year, I doubled my revenue. It was amazing, and I felt, like totally on top of the world. And then in the fifth year, I lost all my clients. Everybody just said goodbye, and here I was all by myself. And for the next 2 or 3 months, I made less money each of those months than I had made when I first started as a Pampered Chef consultant in my very first business, like back. And I will tell you, it was a rude awakening. But more than that, it was depressing. I kept questioning my validity. Who was I to think that I was a coach? It was all turned on me, right? Like how terrible everything was. And but then it was also anger at my clients who left in the middle, like it was their fault. It's only now or later, so it's been a few years, but it's only until after quite a bit of time. Yeah, hi, Kevin. Yeah, wow, right? It was only in hindsight that I actually could see that if my business hadn't broken down then, that there was so many things that I know now, that I bring to my business now, that my business, the opportunities that my business have had since then, that couldn't or wouldn't have happened. So for instance, I would never have learned how to really deliver what I was promising my clients as opposed to just being able to sell it. I was good at sales. I had 15, 16 years of sales training as a indirect sales. I was really good at sales, but I wasn't as good as knowing how to specifically deliver what I was promising. So that was one thing. I wouldn't have realized how incredibly emotionally attached, I used to say addicted to the word yes, right? How attached I was to people saying yes to my offer, or how being attached emotionally was hindering my capacity to growth, and actually hindering me from what might be possible, hindering me from how to be in business without driving it really hard and in the process driving myself into the ground. But here's the thing, it did break down. It did. And I did learn those lessons, and every single one of them led to a breakthrough in how I thought about myself, how I thought about the work that I was putting in the world, which totally shifted how I do that work, how I show up in my business for my clients, and even better, how I show up for myself, right? Sometimes you actually need to break down to break through to a new level, not even of, yes, growth, but not just growth, a new level of understanding how your world works. So I have it's like a habit. I have learned to look for opportunities in every obstacle that shows up and to consistently get out of my own damn way so that my business can flourish, so that I can flourish, so that opportunities show up and I can recognize them. So are you ready to learn the steps, at least the steps that I teach, the steps that I use to turn breakdowns into breakthroughs? So I see that a couple of people are here. So if you want to know them, just let me know. Just say something. Again, you know how much I hate talking into the ether, like, join my conversation, damn it. Okay, so first step in a breakthrough is to name it. So what do I mean by that? Well, sometimes we're in the middle of a breakdown and things are falling apart or collapsing, or and we're in the midst of it, but we haven't taken the time, first of all, to acknowledge it, and then actually specifically look at what the problem is. Because I'm going to tell you something. It might feel like it's everything, but it is not everything, right? Not everything is falling apart. There are specific issues. There's a specific challenge. There may even have been a very specific incident or a specific conversation or a specific client or a specific something, contract, who knows, whatever it is. So the first important thing is to actually name what it is. And sometimes when we think that we are identifying what it is, we are identifying the symptom, but not the actual reality of what the breakdown actually is, right? So, it's easy to see the fire. It's easy to see the symptom or the immediate issue that we're having that needs to be resolved. But sometimes it's harder to dig underneath the squeaky wheel, the thing that's calling for your attention, to actually figure out, oh, that's the problem right there. That's the issue. So for example, I'm going to give you an example that actually happened to one of my clients this week. So in her business, they just went from one kind of software, internal software, that allows their clients to schedule and allows the team to talk to each other and to see what's happening in the business. It allows them to send emails. It allows them to send internal messages, all of that, right? So they went from one software and to another software, because the first software could let them do a bunch of things, but couldn't let them do all the things they needed to do now that they've grown to be a bigger size, right? And they're super busy. So they did this the change happened on April 1st. They spent weeks getting ready for it. And if any of you have been through a software change in your business or in anything, you know that it never goes as smoothly as you think it's going to go. There's always issues, right? And so I got a panic text that just said, I'm going to throw this thing out the window, right? Like everything was wrong. Everything. There was like, it was just a mess. That was the way she was seeing the problem. But after we talked, what she could see is that there were some really specific issues. It wasn't letting her do some really specific, important things. That was the first thing. But then there was also this thought process that she was worried about the impact that the difference in the way in the user experience, in the way the software was showing up for her clients, and how her clients were interacting with her business, because now they were interacting through this specific software, and how it led them through the experience. She was really worried that was upsetting them. Okay, so that was underneath the wah. Okay, so and then there were specific things that she was not able to get to in ways that she had been used to getting them. So once we took all the really big frustration, emotion, and immediate upset away, and actually digged in, we could actually name the 3 biggest problems that were going on. And so now we knew what the problem was, okay? And it wasn't that the whole thing wasn't working, which was the first impulse of to think the whole thing needed to be thrown out the window. So that's when you name it, when you really are defining specifically what the problem is, okay? So that's step 1. Step 2, you ask yourself, is the way that I'm reacting, is my interpretation of what's happening the truth? So I have this thing where, or I explain it this way. This is how you know something is the truth, with a capital T, or all caps, the truth. So the truth is when every single human on the planet would react or interpret a situation in exactly that way that you are, in exactly the same way. If every single person would interpret it in that specific way or have that specific reaction, then that is the truth with a capital T. However, if you can see that there are some people that might have a different reaction to the same situation, to the same breakdown, then it isn't truth with a capital T, it's your truth. It's what you've decided is true. So in order to know how to shift any specific breakdown, and both the actual circumstances of the breakdown and your reaction to the breakdown, to be able to change that, you have to be able to know if the way that you're handling it is the truth for universally, or whether it's just the truth for you, the way you're doing it. Okay, this is really, really important, because here's the thing. If there's more than one possible way to react to whatever is happening, or to handle whatever is happening, then all of a sudden there's a glimmer for another possibility, another opportunity, a different way of doing things. What that leaves is whether or not, once you see that opportunity, whether you take it. So the third step is to actually look. What is possible? What is the opportunity? So if you're looking at a breakdown, if you're in the middle of all this thing and you're reacting to it in certain ways, and you take a moment and ask yourself, okay, is this the truth? Is this my truth? Is this my interpretation of what's happening? Is my reaction the way of what's happening? And if is only yours and there's other possibilities, ask yourself, okay, so what is possible? What else is possible? What other ways could there be of handling this situation? And this is kind of where the fun comes in, if you're willing to play even in the middle of being in the middle of a breakdown. Like, y'all know, right? Like when when that happened to me, when I lost all my clients and for a couple months was making like no money or hardly any money, stepping outside of my experience was really hard. Like I'm not trying to sell anybody what is it, a ball of goods. God, me and my vocabulary. Anyway, I'm not trying to tell you that it's easy. It is simple, but it is not easy to step outside of your experience, especially when you're frustrated and upset, right? But and it took me a little while. Look, honesty, right? Transparency. It took me a while, about a month and a half. And during that month and a half, I just kept digging myself deeper into the hole of despair, that tornado that just kept pulling me down. It got kind of ugly and dark. And with some help, actually reaching out to a friend who's a past client and talking to some other people, I started to see a glimmer of possibility and could actually separate myself from my reaction enough to say, okay, so what are some other possibilities? What are some other ways that people have handled this kind of experience? Or, yeah, what are some ways that I can think of that I could or is possible to handle this experience, even if I don't know anybody who has handled it that way? It's almost like a brainstorming session for a specific situation. So what's possible? Well, I'll tell you. If we go back to my client, one of the things that in the state that she's in, she could have just called him and said, F it. Like, take it away. We're going back to the way it was. And all those months of preparation and all that money that she had spent would have gone down the drain. And she never really would have known. She would never know whether or not it was going to turn out in the end. Or she could take a couple of deep breaths, like an opportunity, right? She could take a couple of deep breaths and make a list of the things, talk to all of her staff, find out where they were having problems, maybe even ask some of her best favorite clients to run through it for her and let her know what they thought, right? That's a way she could have handled it without immediately jumping to conclusions. That would have been an opportunity. She could have just ignored it. That was a possibility, right? I mean, there's lots of different ways and none of them are right or wrong. There are just lots of different possible ways of handling something. So you want to ask yourself what else is possible. Like, write down all the possible ways that this particular breakdown could be handled. Another really big one that has been coming up a lot for my clients in the last couple of weeks is about hiring. Like, it's really hard to find employees right now. People who are looking for jobs are in the driver's seat. They get to choose. And unless you are offering a job that in a way that kind of markets to what they're looking for and fulfills the criteria that they're looking for in a company to work for and in a job and the way to spend 8 hours of their day, you're not going to find an employee. This is a breakdown that lots and lots of my clients are having, right? And they are handling it in a variety of different ways. But for all of them, the first thing that shows up is frustration, because that's what happens when you're in a breakdown. That's like the first thing that happens, just automatic. It's like, right? So then from there, we name what the problem is. We ask, okay, so is the way you're handling it the only way to handle it? And if the answer is no, okay, so what are some other possibilities? And we just make a list of potential ways to handle it. Potential ways to handle it. And we can get pretty outrageous, right? Because if you lose your sense of humor, you've lost everything. Okay, so we make a list of all of the possibilities. And then the fourth way, the fourth thing to do is to actually choose one of those other possibilities. And here's the kicker. Human beings in general often choose a way of reacting that I'm going to take that sentence back for a sec. Okay, so what we do is we often choose a way of reacting that doesn't actually work for us, but is really good at blaming others or taking it out of ourselves. And there is nothing wrong with that. I'm going to be really clear. There would have been nothing wrong with my client throwing the software out the window. Nothing. Because you know what? One interpretation is not better than another for anybody other than the person who is living the situation, because nobody else freaking cares. It doesn't impact me if my client throws her software out the window. It just impacts her and her business. And in the end, that will impact her employees, right? But in the moment, which interpretation or which way you decide to handle it impacts nobody but yours. There is not a good way or a bad way. There is only a way that works for you or ends up with perhaps getting through this breakdown into a breakthrough, right? Things that move things forward or things that keep you stuck or move you backwards. But you get to choose. So if you have the list of all of the potential ways of handling something, then you can choose. Well, you can ask yourself, why am I choosing this way? This is not moving me forward. This is just creating more of a pain. This can create real damage. This just sends me back, spiraling. But if I chose that way of handling it, there are some other possibilities, right? If I chose that way of, or maybe if I choose that way, there are some other possibilities. So it's all just about choosing a different way of reacting, choosing a different interpretation of what's actually happening in the world. Here's what I was going to say before. Human beings automatically think or put things in categories always in the worst light, like that the impact of what they're doing is always danger. And I actually think that that's a biological function from always looking out in our history when we were hunters and gatherers for danger, right? So we're always looking for what isn't working. We're always on the lookout for something that can kill us or something that is going to hurt us. And it's the same now. We automatically go to a way of thinking or a way of describing, defining, and interpreting what is happening to us from a place of it's leading us to danger. So we have to react as if whatever's happening to us is going to cause us to die. Right? This is in the base part of your brain. We're going to die. And so when you are faced with real danger, the first thing that happens is fight or flight, right? Fight. Throw the thing out the window. But it's not, first of all, it's not that kind of a life or death situation. And there's other possibilities. So the whole structure of how to go from being in the middle of a breakdown through to it being a breakthrough and actually opening the doors to different possibilities, to a different stage of growth, to a different level, to having your business be in a position that it's never been before, is to consistently ask yourself what else is possible. What other way is possible? How can I react to this in a different way instead of get stuck in the spiral of frustration? I mean, that's really at the core of what I'm talking about. So for those of you who are listening, or if you've listened, what is a breakdown that your business or that you in your business are experiencing right now? Is there one? Is there something specific that you're finding as the challenge, as an obstacle, as something that you've been banging your head up against the wall over and over and over? I would love to hear about it. And I would love to help you figure out or see what other possibilities there are, because that's fun. It's like problem solving. And then when you see it, you're like, oh, I could do that. Now, sometimes, as it actually happened with my client with her software, is, she could see some possibility, and then the next day there was another thing that went wrong, and she went right back into, But then by the end of the day, she had calmed down again. She had made a meeting. She's having that meeting. She's got a list of things, the issues and the priority in which she needs them fixed. She has a plan for how to ask for what she needs and what it looks like to have the result that she wants, so that without being upset, without being mad, because what does being mad do? It just puts people on the defensive. And while we're still in the middle of the story, right? We haven't gotten to breakthrough yet. We're still in the middle of the story. We are closer to getting to the other side. And you know what? Maybe the result will be that she throws the software out and goes back to what she was doing before. But as of this moment, we don't know. We don't know whether that's what's going to happen. Or maybe the issues will get solved and she'll use this new software and all the things that she wanted, and the reason why she chose it, maybe all those things will actually happen. And then her business will have an opportunity to grow in a way that it hasn't before. But we're back in possibility rather than there's no way this can work. And that's what this is all about. Getting from breakdown to breakthrough is about keeping yourself open to what is possible as much of the time as you can, even while you're in the middle of facing a challenge. So I hope that this was helpful, right? I really do. If you want the notes, or if you want to talk to me about your particular situation, please reach out. You can send me a message here and go to my website and send me a message there. But in the meantime, I wish you all the possibility in the world. And of course, I'll see you here. I'll see you, here could be, maybe we're on Facebook together. Maybe we're on LinkedIn together. This is in so many different places, but yeah, so reach out and let's talk. Okay. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. And I'll be back here next week talking about some other specific issues that have to do with being a business owner and getting your business to get past just the viable stage into the growth stage. Okay. Bye.